Hi, Trevor here, Life Reflection Requests. Welcome and thank you for stopping by. It's fantastic you are here. Well, this channel has received another request, and the life for the guy today started in 1931 in Clarksdale, Mississippi, but the family moved to Chicago in 1933. Now, this guy is considered the most influential artist in soul music history, very much regarded as the king of soul, influencing such artists as Aretha Franklin, Al Green, Curtis Mayfield, and Stevie Wonder. There we go. How amazing are those names right there? Who we're talking about? Sam Cooke. Now, as I said, 1930s US, Southern USA, need we say more about what was happening during that time? In fact, it was Martin Luther King in 1963 who famously said, "I have a dream where I want my family to grow up in safety, and I want to have a good and happy life like everybody else." And we know how massive that particular speech was, that Sam Cooke found himself very much getting part of the civil rights movement at that point. And we'll get on to a song in a minute that's actually been requested today, where he actually pretty well made a statement to the world about that very thing. But I suppose that where I wanted to go a little bit today is to talk about, instead of talk about our differences, let's talk about our similarities. We all have blood pumping through our veins. We all have a heart. We all have a brain. We all want to live a happy life. We all want safety for our children and for ourselves. We want to live in a life where we're free and we're safe to do what we want. We want to have a life where we can have dreams and aspirations. And as Martin Luther King said in 1963, I have a dream. Of course, what Martin Luther King was saying at this point was he was going back to Abraham Lincoln 100 years earlier, when the Emancipation Declaration was signed to abolish slavery. He said, well, basically, even though some things have changed, there's still more work to be done. And so I think when we look at this thing called, when we look at people differently to ourselves, I think that the thing we've got to look at is we've got to look at what causes that to happen in the first place. Of course, there could be, a society that's kind of getting us to think a certain way. I mean, you just got to look around the world at the moment, and there's decades and decades, sometimes centuries, of hatred towards another group of people. But just thinking about myself for a second here, I have this thing called a first impression reflex. That's the thing where we look somewhere to try to sum them up and organise who they are really, really quickly. I don't know about you. If I was on the receiving end of a first impression reflex, I'd be wanting to I want that person to give me a bit more of a go, try and work out who I am before before they make up their mind too much. I mean, we all have this thing called a first impression reflex, but what we can actually do is we can limit its effect. So when we find ourselves doing it, we quickly tell our brains, hang on a minute, no, we're going to limit that. We're going to give the person a bit more of a go than what we normally would. And what's one way to do that? Well, volunteer for an organisation where it deals with people who make you feel uncomfortable. I actually did that a few years ago myself with a community meal in the city, a particularly rough one, and I got to hear the stories of people that are incredibly resilient and incredibly resourceful. And that really and truly shut down my first impression reflex to a point where, it's natural for me not to use it now. It's still there a little bit. We never completely get rid of it. But you know what? We can certainly limit its effect if we're aware of it. And this is certainly what Sam Cooke was actually trying to do in his song in 1964, "A Change Is Going to Come." He was inspired, as most of the world was, by the speech from Martin Luther King Jr. in 1963, "I have a dream," and he thought, yeah, I have a dream too, and I have a dream that a change is going to come. He could have said, well, you know, life's just really bad and it's horrible and all the rest of it. But instead of that, he put a bit of hope in his lyrics and said, I really want this change to happen. And this song came out to reflect those thoughts. So, you know, Sam Cooke had this incredible influence by this point. I mean, just look at those names that he influenced later, and he used that influence to make his own statement to the world. This statement to the world cost him his life, though, because certainly between 1958 and 1964, he had released 11 albums. That's a staggering amount of output. And 2 after his death, because it was in 1964, he was staying in a hotel, and the hotel owner shot him at the age of 33. Of course, this is in a long line of shootings. We had Abraham Lincoln in 1865. We had JFK, John F. Kennedy in 1963, and as I've said, Sam Cooke in 1964, Martin Luther King in 1968, and John Lennon in 1980. You know, it just goes to show that some people can't turn off their first reflex, and it gets to a point where they believe they're being led to do something absolutely tragic. And for Sam Cooke to die at the age of 33 was an absolute tragedy amongst all those others that have been assassinated as well. And so, you know, he did release, and there were 2 albums after his death just to commemorate the fact that, you know, he was a significant player in the world of music. Imagine the 1960s having a performing career. Of course, this guy was a bit of a crooner, silky, smooth voice, absolute silky smooth performance, and he was at the top of his career at this point. He did release 50 singles in his time as well. In fact, 29 of those singles got into the top 40. So very influential, very successful. And since that time, there have been a few accolades given to him. He's been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice, once in his own right and once as part of a group he was part of. He was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame in 1987. He received the Star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 1994. He received the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 1994. In 2004, Rolling Stone put him the 16th most influential performer in their top 100. In 2008, the 4th greatest singer of all time. So just goes to show that many years after his death, he is still thought of with quite fondness by the industry. So it's great to see that his influence lives on. So the encouragement from today is, hey, be aware of our first impression reflex. At least it can start somewhere with us. And let's limit it and give people a bit more of a go, even if they're different to us. Well, on to the clips. So we do have a change that's going to come. This came off the 1964 album, Ain't That Good News. This is kind of a video photo montage of the story of this song. There's a few confronting images in there, but they're very thought-provoking indeed. And so a fantastic montage for this particular song. We're then going to go back to the start of his career, and certainly You Send Me, 1957. This is off the self-titled album Sam Cooke, and this is a live version, so you'll see what I mean by how compelling he was as a performer and how silky smooth his vocal delivery was. And I thought we needed to go a little bit more upbeat, and then in 1962 we had Twisting the Night Away. Of course, this guy was the penultimate performer really, and it's good to see that he can do the slow stuff and the fast stuff equally well, and then the compelling epic songs like A Change Is Going to Come. So we've got that, and that's came off the album of the same name, Twisting the Night Away in 1962, a live version for you. And so the links to all of those 3 songs are in the description below. And you'll probably note when I do a request, I don't refer to the previous song in the series, because, you know, we kind of put these things in the middle there. We kind of pause the series when a request comes our way. So we'll get on to whoever we're going to get on to next time. So if you have come back for another video, if this is your first time to Life Reflections Through Music, Welcome to everybody, and thank you for the request today. It was really great to get requests and conversation like we did with this song, and great for myself to be inspired by Sam Cooke's story. So that's it for today. So until next time, I'll catch you around. Bye for now.